Good morning to everybody and welcome to the Vedanta Hall. As you know that we are celebrating Kali Puja. We will have 2 talks and then in between we'll have Sarod recital and then flower offering ceremony. And then Robert will make a few announcements before we distribute the offered sweets and savories. I just draw your attention to a small introduction before we listen to our one of the 2 speakers. In the history of Hinduism, the goddess Kali appears first in the Rig Veda, the oldest known Vedic Sanskrit text. She appears as a goddess named Ratri or nighttime. Then in Mundaka Upanishads, as she appears as Agnis or the god of fire's black tongue. In fact, Agni, the god of fire, has 7 tongues, but the Kali represents the black tongue. In the Tantric tradition, the figure of Mother Kali conveys death, destruction, fear, etc. All the consuming or negative aspects of the apparent reality of our day-to-day life. Whatever we see in the classic descriptions of Mother Kali's most common 4-armed iconographic image, there is always underlying meanings or symbolism that relate to different aspects of human lives within our so-called apparent, predominantly material and psychophysical reality. In fact, we are under the great illusion of the Prakriti or the nature. For example, Mother Kali is often depicted naked, which symbolizes her being in the absolute cosmic reality, which is beyond the time, space, causality dimensions of our apparent reality that make us deluded. Mother Kali is in fact the pure being, consciousness, and bliss. And therefore, she is far above the nature or the Prakriti. She is shown as very dark, which symbolizes her being without any permanent qualities, and sometimes as blue, deep blue, which indicates that she is infinite like nature's blue sky. Either of these 2 colors means she is Brahman in its supreme unmanifest state of the primordial energy. The root of the word Kali, as you all know, in Sanskrit is Kala or time. Kali, being the mother of time, she devours or consumes time itself, and therefore she is beyond time. But we, the humans, are trapped in the illusion of time along with space and causality. By the way, what is time? When we say now, we automatically refer to the apparent position of the sun in relation to our own spatial position on the revolving earth. Therefore, the concept of time just connects these 2 artificial positions, sun on the one hand and we on the other hand. And then time consumes us. How? Mother Kali's terrifying external form does just that. It explains how time consumes us. Her external terrifying form exposes just that, and it exposes our fear to face our own mortality and to think about our lives slipping away second by second from childhood to adulthood and then death. Whether we are healthy or whether we are with disease, death is reality for us all, which we strongly resist to accept. But question is, what is really the cause of our fear? What is that which dies? In the absolute cosmic reality of the Mother Kali, we are not separate from her. It is our ego which leads to our illusion of separation, making us firstly attached to our body, mind, and life as such, and then making us unaware of the limitless wonder of oneness which Mother Kali, the pure being, consciousness, and bliss. Mother Kali's fearsome external form is in fact in service of vanquishing or defeating thoroughly everything we are attached to as humans. The seeds of our every desire, every selfish action, and even the predominantly material life itself. It is Mother Kali who intends to make us recognize our inherent divinity. That is why she makes gestures with her two right hands to dispel any fear in us and offers blessings or booms, so that our ego consciousness could merge in her universal cosmic consciousness. To overcome our fear, what we need is simply to surrender our egos on her sacred feet. Well, let me request Dr.Sanker Karunanithi to present his talk titled To Boldly Realize Our Inner Calling. Dr. Sanker Karunanithi is a neuroscientist. He has an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering and a PhD in physiology. He is life member of the Ramakrishna Saroda Vedanta Society in New South Wales. And Mataji is his guru. While living in Canada, he served for several years on the executive committee of the Vedanta Society of Toronto. While living in USA, he was closely affiliated with the Vedanta Society of Southern California and established a Vedanta group in Tucson, Arizona, conducting weekly meetings and hosting monthly visits by the Swamis from Los Angeles. He has recently relocated to Sydney from Brisbane. Dr. Karunanithi.
Good morning, Pravrajikas, devotees, and friends. I'd like to first thank Gayatriprana ji and Robert for inviting me to give this short talk. Goddess Kali in some ways represents change. And as Dilip told you, Kali means time. And we can think of ourselves as changing over time. And in today's talk, I will suggest that the changes that we bring about in our lives be motivated by our inner calling. Our lives have been turned upside down due to this pandemic, and a lot of people are suffering. People have suffered from COVID infections, lost loved ones, lost jobs. People have been in lockdown for extensive periods of time, and this is causing depression and loneliness. But there's also been some unexpected good that has come out of this. For example, people are finding that they could work just as effectively from home as at work, and therefore escape the daily stresses of office life. And also, the air is somewhat cleaner because there are fewer cars on the road. Now, in all, this pandemic has forced hard changes in our lives. And when any change has been forced on us, it makes us introspective. When we look at the image of Kali, it's a bold image of a goddess, which to me represents the idea that as we move forward, we should face change boldly, head on, and without fear. The pandemic has forced drastic changes over a very short period of time. We can only worry so much about the future, but ultimately, we have to view this situation as an opportunity to help us reassess how to go about bringing positive change in our lives. To do that, I think it's a good idea to ask ourselves some of the big questions like, am I meeting my life's goals? Or even, what are my life's goals? Most of us live busy lives. We're bringing up families, working, and we really don't have much time to think about these big questions, or for that matter, how to go about addressing them. Maybe we should prioritize asking these questions. Let me relate to you an interesting story about life's goals. 13 years ago, as Dilip said, I was still living in the USA in Tucson, Arizona. And when I was living there, the now head of the Vedanta Society of Southern California, Swami Sarvadevananda, used to come to Tucson to give a monthly talk. And then after that talk, he would, on most occasions, I would have to drive him to Phoenix. And on one occasion, I was sitting in the car with him, and he suggested to me, Shankar, I think you should read this very interesting business book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I remember amusedly thinking, shouldn't these swamis be telling us what spiritual books we should be reading and not business books? Anyway, I went and bought the copy of this book, and I found it to be one of the best books I've ever read. It's more about personal change than business, and I highly recommend it. In that book, there's a chapter called Begin with the End in Mind. In it, Covey provides an exercise to visualize what you want to achieve in your life goals. Let me relate it to you. Imagine driving to a funeral of a loved one. Once you park your car, you enter the chapel, and as you enter, you can visualize the flowers that have been neatly placed around the chapel, the soft organ music, and as you walk, you see the expressions of on the faces of people, and you can feel the sorrow in their hearts. Now, as you walk past them to the front of the chapel and to the casket, and you peer down into the casket, you come face to face with yourself It's your funeral 3 years from now. And all these people who have come there have come to honor you and celebrate your life. Now, when you walk back and take your seat, you look at the program in your hand and you notice that there are 4 people there to give you a eulogy. One of them is from your immediate family. A second member is a friend who can give you a good knowledge of what you are as a person. There's a third person from your work. And final speaker is someone from the community or church where you have been involved in service. Now, think deeply about what these people will be saying about you. What character traits you would like them to remember you by? What contributions and achievements you would like to be remembered for? Look at the people around you, look at their faces, and ask yourself, what sort of change would you have liked to have brought into their lives? You write them down. Now, in effect, what you have written down is what you want to achieve in your life by keeping your end goal in mind, by thinking about what your family, your friends, your work colleagues, and those in the community have to say about you at your funeral. What you have done is you gain a better idea of what you want to achieve in your life. It's a compelling vision, don't you think? Now, when one follows one's inner calling, one is in effect following one's own original path. Now, let me make a few points about your inner calling. Last year, myself and a couple of other Australian devotees went to Trivandrum in India to celebrate Pravrajika Ajayapranaji or Mataji's 93rd birthday celebrations. That was on November the 8th last year. Now, at that occasion, Robert here gave a short speech listing 4 of his favorite life's lessons that he had learnt from Mataji. Now, one of those lessons was to be an original and not copy anybody else, because we all are individuals and we all have a great deal of creativity, and we have to allow ourselves to develop them. In that way, we're all going to be interesting and not boring by not copying anybody else. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple Computers and a man considered to be one of the greatest innovators of this century, said something similar in his Stanford commencement speech in 2005. I recommend you watch it on YouTube. It's great. He said, "Don't waste your life by living someone else's life." Adam Grant, an American psychologist and professor of business at the University of Pennsylvania, has written a compelling book called Originals. It describes the traits of people who have become successful by following their own paths. Grant writes, "Originals embrace the uphill battles, striving to make the world what it could be. Becoming original is not the easiest path in the pursuit of happiness, but it leaves us perfectly poised for the happiness of the pursuit." Perfectly poised for the happiness of the pursuit. That means that to follow your inner calling, it takes a lot of courage. There are lots of unknowns, failures, setbacks, fear, doubt, rejections along the way. But if one persists, one will learn a lot along the way and gain lots of happiness and be rewarded by that journey. Long before Steve Jobs and Adam Grant, Swami Vivekananda also said similar things regarding being original and following our inner calling. And what that highlights is that following one's inner calling is a universal concept of humanity. A sentiment I want to share with you about the inner calling comes from an unlikely source. Phil Knight, the founder of Nike shoes. I'm sure everybody here would have worn Nike shoes one time in their lives. Phil writes a very compelling, funny, and self-deprecating autobiography called Shoe Dog. And it's very unusual for a person who founded $1 billion company. Anyhow, he writes, "Seek a calling. Even if you don't know what that means, seek it. If you're following your calling, the fatigue would be easier to bear, the disappointments would be fewer, and the highs will be nothing like you've ever felt." When we follow our inner calling or any type of new challenge, we are bound at some stage to make mistakes, encounter failures and setbacks, and become fearful. The resulting pain, embarrassment, even punishment could derail us from reaching our goal and even make us sick. That's if we don't face our fears boldly. We have to see failures for what they are, as simply tools that enable us to learn something new in order to succeed. The business psychology author, John Maxwell, says in his book, Failing Forward, failure is the price you pay for success. Swami Vivekananda famously said, "Never mind failures, they are the beauty of life, these failures. What would life be without them? Never mind the struggles, the mistakes, these little backslidings. Hold the ideal 1,000 times, and if you fail 1,000 times, make the attempt once more." So what we are hearing is that there's no achievement without failure. When ordinary people list what appears to be when ordinary people list their fears, what appears to be more common than the fear of death is the fear of public speaking. It's the fear of failing so publicly. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld said jokingly that if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. and people have lots of fear around the concept of failure, and they simply try and skirt around them in order to avoid the pain. Much of the problem comes about because a person falsely thinks that he's a failure and not what he did was a failure. The inability to understand that subtle but critical difference is what sends people into a tailspin, making them sick or even depressed. To therefore correctly see failure for what it is, simply as a tool of learning, we have to understand that failure comes about as a result of what you did rather than you being a failure. No one is born as a failure or a loser. When it comes to the psychology of handling the fear of failing, Susan Jaffers, the author of the famous book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, says that the only way to get rid of the fear of doing something is to go out and do it. At the bottom of every one of your fears is simply the fear that you can't handle whatever life may bring you. All you have to do to diminish your fear is to develop more trust in your ability to handle whatever comes your way by simply saying to yourself, "I can handle it." Yes, simply, "I can handle it." That's what I said before this talk. Now, aside from learning through failures and overcoming fears, another important ingredient in the quest to realize your inner calling is developing perseverance. That is, not giving up to reach your goal in the face of obstacles and challenges. Thomas Edison, the famous inventor, said that many of life's failures are people who do not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. So be careful about giving up. Now, Phil Knight makes an important clarification about giving up in his book. He says, sometimes you have to give up. Sometimes knowing when to give up, when to try something else is genius. Giving up does not mean stopping. Don't ever stop. That means you have to be open to trying new ways to reach your goal when old ways don't work, but it does not mean that you give up your goal. So the question is, why is it important not to give up? When we take up something new, we may not have all the tools and knowledge that are necessary for us to successfully complete a task. It's only by trial and error that we acquire them. We need to develop perseverance in order to try something again and again until we develop the necessary skills to do something right. For example, if one tries to bake a cake for the first time from a recipe book, even though we follow the recipe closely, the cake does not turn out right like the way you wanted it to. Maybe it's because the baking tray that you used was a different size to what they had in the book. Maybe it's because you used a fan-forced oven rather than a convection oven. Or it could be some slight differences in the ingredients that you bought in the supermarkets in Australia than in Europe, where the cooking book, the recipe book, was written. But if you try making the cake again and again by accounting for these little differences, you will eventually bake a perfect cake. So the moral of the story is that life is like baking a cake. And you need to keep on making incremental changes again and again along the way to reach the goal. This is because the practicality of reaching the goal is different to what it was at the beginning, because you didn't anticipate all those unexpected problems along the way. It's also important to note that as you try new things and persevere, your luck increases with effort, pushing you closer to the goal. Now, in any worthy pursuit, a certain level of self-discipline is necessary. A way of life where self-discipline is the normality is in the military. You know, discipline is crucial in succeeding in wartime missions, where lots of preparation and repetition of tasks are conducted in order to prepare one for the unexpected. Now, Admiral William Mcraven was the commander of all US Special Operations Forces under George Bush and Barack Obama, and he was responsible for the capture of Saddam Hussein, among other things. He has recently written this cute little book about the life lessons that he had learned in the military called Make Your Bed. He starts off by saying that if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. When Mcraven finished his university, he tried out to join the elite Navy SEALs, and he eventually did. He writes that the first task of the day during his training was to make the bed perfectly. He described the exacting requirements expected by his trainers. So they wanted the sheets being folded into perfect hospital corners, and the blanket and the pillow had to be correctly aligned. Now, if this wasn't done, he got punished. And the punishment was that he had to run in his full uniform into the surf. And when he got out of the surf, he had to roll around on the wet sand, and he describes himself as looking somewhat like a sugar cookie, as he says. And he had to be in that state all day. And it was very embarrassing because they knew why he was in that state, because he didn't make his bed properly. So he said it was very embarrassing. But he said the take-home message was that by starting the day off, by making the bed perfectly, provided him with a small sense of accomplishment. And that motivated him to complete other tasks throughout the day. Building rhythm and momentum early in the day keeps one moving forward and staying motivated throughout the day. Daily life, he says, needs structure, and completing a small task well the first thing in the morning could help one accomplish a lot throughout the day. So I say, make your bed. Finally, if you want to achieve anything worthwhile, you need to want it badly, despite all the failures and setbacks you will encounter along the way. As Sri Ramakrishna describes it, it's somewhat like gasping for air when your head is being held underwater. When others don't believe in you, you need to believe in yourself. You need to have faith in yourself. On those days when you're feeling down and you think you're not going to be making it, and no amount of positive thinking is going to pull you up, you just need to be able to put one foot in front of the other, and that may be enough. As Norman Vincent Peale, in his book, The Power of Positive Thinking, said, without a humble but reasonable confidence in your own powers, you cannot be successful or happy. Develop a tremendous faith in God, and that will give you a humble yet soundly realistic faith in yourself. In the pursuit of a worthy, hard-won goal, be it spirituality or some other goal, those on the path encounter similar experiences, as I have indicated in the examples I've provided. In these uncertain times, we should embrace the spirit of Goddess Kali and go forward boldly to fulfill our inner calling without fear and with hope, optimism, and faith in oneself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanker Karunanithi. It's very exhaustive, refreshing examples relating to today's celebration of Mother Kali, that be bold. And I like that the example. Think about your funeral, your own funeral, when you are attending others' funeral, to find out your compelling vision. That's true. In fact, just a few days ago, I was in a funeral of one of my neighbors who passed away at the 94 years age. And I was thinking in the funeral that what's our life about. So this is the aim. And so, as you mentioned that, whatever needs to be done, do it as quick as possible. And then you will see tomorrow somebody, if you don't do, tomorrow somebody else has already done it. Anyway, so we will now invite our very favorite Tanim Bhai and his Sarod recital. Tanim Hayat Khan Rajit, the full name, is from a family overflowing with musical talent. He grew up listening to the songs of his mother, a popular singer of the 1960s, and a trio of famous singing aunts, his grandfather, his grandfather's brother, his cousin, all are famed musicians and Sarod players. Tanim Bhai has performed on TV in Bangladesh, and he represented Bangladesh at a major concert staged at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games. Yes, so what is? Oh yes, yes, yes. Please come in and let me know whether we can help you some way. Here to this one. Should I take it down? This one?
Yeah. Let's just look at two people up here. If you sit up here, so you're pretty central.
Is that okay?
Glass of water. Glass of water.
Yes, please.
You look in your computer and see how this is. To the left.
Maybe.
Sort of down.
Oh, no, that's okay because you've got Holy Mother in the top corner.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks.
What was that? What's that?
Well, that's for YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And you've got another mic there.
Yeah, I
right?
will use that too. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's still morning. It's good to be back because of those pandemic and other stuff. Being tired of playing on Facebook Live and other stuff. It's good to have some real people in the front after exactly 1 year. Last year, December, I think we performed here. So in the whole year, being a musician, just one performance, obviously not good, but it's obviously possibly the starting of the whole thing again. So hopefully it will go on and onwards from here and onwards. I'll play a bit of rag kirwani today, which is basically a South Indian raga incorporated to the North Indian classical music. And thanks, Robert, again for inviting me in here. I've probably doing it for the last 4 or 5 years almost, yes. And I will, as long as I live, I will continue. I dedicate my performance today to my late father, who passed away last year, 24th of November. So I'm still, obviously, the shadow and the feelings and everything is still alive with me. I spoke with him in my dream just today and woke up. So it's a big loss for myself, for everything what I do in my life. His influences was enormous. So I'll dedicate my playing for my dad today. Thank you. Am I over time? Did I play a little longer than 20 minutes?
We're in the presence of timelessness here.
As long as you like.
No, Robert said 20 minutes. I don't know. It's okay. Thank you very much for listening. I'll try my best. Thank you. Just left it there. Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks, Tanim. It's mesmerizing. I'm sure that everybody enjoyed, and it's very assuring that we have already written a blank check to the society, and look forward to seeing you again, your recital in the future. Thanks very much. Now let me request Pravrajika Gayatriprana for her talk titled Worship of the Terrible.
Thank you, Shankar, for the beautiful talk, and Tanim Khan for the wonderful recital, Sarod. Om Srishtisthiti Vinashanam Shakti Bhode Sanatani Gunashraye Gunamaye Narayani Namostute. Salutations to you, O Narayani, you who have the power of creation, preservation, and destruction, and are eternal. You are the substratum and embodiment of the three gunas. A happy Diwali to all of you. Yesterday, Hindus all over the world celebrated Deepavali or Diwali. Now, it is not just Hindus, now it's being recognized by everybody. We had our Prime Minister, the Premier, opposition leader for state and federal, all giving greetings to the Hindu community for Diwali. And interfaith groups also extend their greetings for Diwali. Diwali or Deepavali is a festival of lights. Traditionally, we used to light oil lamps. Now we have candles or even electric lamps we have. And it's a dark fortnight, so everywhere it's completely dark, pitch dark, and these lights light up the whole night. There are several stories connected with the celebration of Diwali. One is it's a day when Sri Krishna destroyed the demon Naraka and rescued 16,000 maidens held captive by him. So we celebrate that as a victory of good over the evil. Again, that's a day said that Sri Rama has said to have come back to Ayodhya after destroying the demon king Ravana and rescuing Sita. So the whole city decorated and lamps were lit to welcome Rama, Sita, and the whole group back. So it's a victory of good over evil, light over darkness. We light the lamp of wisdom in our heart to welcome the Lord, the hearts and mind, dispelling the darkness of ignorance. And this ignorance is the cause of all the misery that we suffer. In some parts of India, it is the worship is for goddess Lakshmi, goddess of prosperity, especially for Gujarat. The business people open the new account books and start, because today is the New Year day, and to start worshipping goddess Lakshmi, they start the business anew. And Bengal, Assam, and some other parts, it is the worship of. For devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, worship of Kali is very important. It was in the Kali temple of Dakshineshwar that Sri Ramakrishna spent most of his adult life, say from 1855 to 1885, he spent his days in the Kali temple in Dakshinesha. And he started his experiments of the great spiritual truths by trying to have the vision of Mother Kali. And Sri Ramakrishna ever remained a child of Mother Kali, even after he had the highest of Advaitic realization, that is Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Even then, he remained the child of Mother Kali. And whenever he had any problem, difficulties, fear, just like a child, he ran to Mother Kali. When Totapuri, his Advaitic teacher, he came to Dakshinesha, and seeing Sri Ramakrishna, asked whether he was interested in practicing Advaitic discipline. He said, I don't know, I'll ask mother. And who is the mother? Totapuri thought he is going to ask his mother, biological mother. But for Sri Ramakrishna, mother means Mother Kali. And again, of course, Mother Kali said, yes, this monk has come just for the purpose of teaching you. Go and learn from him. And when later Narendra, the future Swami Vivekananda, made fun of his realization, saying that all your visions are all hallucinations of your mind. It's all your heated brain. He got worried. Narendra always speaks truth. So how can how could Narendra say this? In confusion, he ran to mother. And mother consoled him, no, all your visions are true. And later we can see he reached a stage where he identified himself with Mother Kali. In the gospel, you can see when he was very sick, one day he was telling his devotees, there are two persons in this body. One is the Divine Mother and the other her devotee. Yes, the mother is one, the other is the devotee. And then he continues, it is the devotee who has got the cancer, but mother is fine. And Holy Mother also looked upon Sri Ramakrishna as Mother Kali. When Sri Ramakrishna passed away, she was told that Sri Ramakrishna has passed away. She cried out, oh Mother Kali, where have you gone, leaving me? All this identification of Sri Ramakrishna with Mother Kali we see. Sister Nivedita, the disciple of Swami Vivekananda, she said she always looked upon Sri Ramakrishna as an incarnation of Kali. So, and then she asked Swamiji whether the future would call him that. Yes, replied Swamiji. I think there is no doubt that Kali worked up the body of Ramakrishna for her own ends. That is what Swamiji replied. So, who or what is Kali so closely associated with Sri Ramakrishna in our times? Among all the Hindu gods and goddesses, Kali, the form of Kali, is the most misunderstood and enigmatic. At first sight, often people recoil from her form. If you look at the painting here, the painting is rather more modified or more dignified. But some of the pictures you can see Kali in all nakedness. It's a naked woman with an apron of human heads, garland of human heads, apron of human hands, garland of human heads, holding a freshly cut head in one hand and the sword used for that dripping with blood in another hand, and standing on the prostrate form of a male. And what sort of goddess is this? People wonder, it's no wonder. And this is a far cry from our well-decked, well-dressed, all beautiful gods and goddesses that Hindus worship. So it's no wonder that people often think that, oh, she's bloodthirsty, goddess of destruction. And often you hear the question, how can you worship such a goddess, such a terrible goddess? So for that we had to have a closer look at her to understand what she symbolizes. You have to remember, Kali is a principle, not a person. It's a principle concretized in a personal form. As we already heard, Kali is the feminine form of the word Kala. Kala means time. God is time, and time is all destroyer. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says that when Arjuna, seeing the universal form of the Lord, Arjuna wanted to see. And Sri Krishna said, well, you can't see with your physical eyes, I'll give you divine eyes. And with the divine eyes, he saw the universal form of Sri Krishna, of the Lord. Sri Krishna is not just the divine form, is not just Krishna, it's the divine of the Lord, Supreme Lord. He got frightened because he is seeing there the past, present, and future all in one spot, whatever is happening. And he got so frightened, he asked, who are you? And what was the answer of that Krishna gave? I am time, the all-consuming destroyer. Kalosmi lokakshakrit pravritho. I am time, at present engaged in destroying the whole world. So nothing can withstand time. If you look at around, we can see nothing withstands time. As we go through the passage of time, moment by moment, we are inching closer and closer to the end of our time on this earth. Just like our lives, the nations, entire civilizations, the earth, planets, stars, the whole creation is rushing towards that one sure end, death or destruction. So Kali is the graphic description or representation of that great truth. Nobody can avoid that. We may not like to accept it, but that's a fact. The Upanishads describe Brahman as that entity from which the whole universe of moving and unknowing has evolved, by which it is supported and into which it dissolves back. Brahman as such is changeless, but when engaged in the acts of creation or projection, etc., we call it Kali or Maya. So Brahman and Kali are inseparable, like fire and its power to burn. Brahman is energy in the potential form, and Kali is energy in the kinetic form. That's all. To show this idea, their potential and kinetic energy, in the picture of Kali, we see Shiva lying down prostrate on the ground, like they say Shava. Shava means a corpse, dead body. Like a dead body, Shiva is lying down there, unmoving, and Kali is standing with one foot on Shiva. Shiva is pure consciousness, the static center of all things, the substratum of all change. The Shiva principle can only be known by its effect. We cannot see it. Just like electricity, we cannot see. We can see only the effects. Shiva principle is like that. Again, it is dependent on Shakti Kali, the active, dynamic aspect for its manifestation. In the book Tantra and its mystic and scientific basis, it is written, it says, Shiva is a witnessing force, knowing entity, but without activation. But without activation of Shakti, he remains objectless, unmanifested. Shakti is neither absolute nor an independent entity. She is the immanent principle of Shiva. And look at Kali. She is standing on Shiva. That means energy cannot remain away from its source. The power need to be connected to the source. So that's why Kali is standing on Shiva. As the power of Brahman, Kali is projecting, sustaining, and absorbing back the projected universe. So she is shown as having 4 hands. With 2 hands, the 2 right hands, she is giving protection, abhaya, don't be afraid, and blessing or boons, whatever, vara, abhaya. So this is called abhaya mudra and vara mudra. Both she is giving, ready to give protection and boons, whatever we want. The other 2 hands depict the absorbing aspect, the destructive aspect. So we see the hand holding the dripping blood dripping sword and the freshly cut head. But the devotee knows that the freshly severed head is not the head of a, it represented as shown as a human head, but it is the ego which is cut. The ego, which is the greatest obstacle in the spiritual path. And what's her sword aimed at? She is aiming her sword at the enemies of higher life, like lust, anger, greed. She is ready to cut all that with her sword. And to show that if we approach Kali, if we try to realize her, she will help us by removing our attachments, by our removing our grabbing tendencies, to show that she has got a apron of severed hands. With hands we catch the attachment. She will cut them off. People are happy to worship Creator, the goddess Creator and Protector, showing the gentle, compassionate, benign aspects. But they don't want to accept the destroyer aspect, the terrible aspect. Because we don't want to face the reality. Death or destruction is a reality. We don't want to face it. We want to bury our head in the sand and think that everything is fine. We will live forever. It won't happen. The death and destruction is part and parcel of creation. Very fact that there is creation, will be destruction. Everything without destructing or destroying, there is no creation, new creation coming. A seed we put in the ground, the seed destroys itself so that a new plant comes up. We demolish the old buildings to bring up new buildings. So destruction is that from which new creation comes up. They go together. They are 2 sides of the same coin. But only bold people, brave people can face this fact and worship Kali. Swami Vivekananda looked upon worship of Kali as worship of death. He said, learn to recognize the mother as instinctively in evil, terror, sorrow, and annihilation, as in that which makes for sweetness and joy. We are ready to see the presence of God in joy and sweetness, but we are not ready to see the presence of God in terror, in evil, in sorrow. Again, Swamiji says, the heart must become a cremation ground. Pride, selfishness, and desire all burn into ashes. Then and then alone will the mother come. So, we see this is not for weak-hearted people. Facing destruction and terror is for, and at see the presence of mother, it's for only for really brave people. How many of us could do that? To see the hand of Kali, the dance of Kali in all the terrible situations, in death and destruction. When the flood water comes and sweeps everything away, are we able to see the presence of Kali there? when the tornadoes and twisters churn up the roofs of buildings like straw, are we able to see the presence of Kali there? And when the forest fire, the bushfire was going on, how many could see the presence of Kali? It's not easy. And now, in this pandemic, when people are dying, the whole world is brought to its knees, are we able to see the presence of Kali? If we can, then we can say we are devotees of Mother Kali. It's only possible for spiritual heroes. That is why they say spiritual life is not for weak-minded. The Upanishad says, Nayam Atma Balahinena Lebhya. This Atman is not to be attained by the weak mind, by the weak. By the weak means not just physically weak. Physical strength or weakness does not matter. It's for the spiritually strong. Spiritual life is only for the heroes, the strong heroes. Even facing, as Shankar said in his talk, it has to be bold to face the challenges, failures. That's all. If we can, then we are able to worship Mother Kali. The weak shrink from her in fear because they're afraid to lose the things that they hold so dear. They don't want to give up and they fear that Mother Kali will take it away. So they don't approach her. Only the brave can do that. So Sri Aurobindo says, if her anger is dreadful to the hostile, and the vehemence of her pressure painful to the weak and timid, she is loved and worshipped by the great, the strong, and the noble. For they feel that her blows beat what is rebellious in their nature into perfect strength and truth. Hammer straight what is wry and perverse, and expel what is impure and defective. So the brave, the bold, does not shrink from worshipping her, approaching her, because they know whatever is impure, whatever is bad in them, she will remove it and take them close to herself. So we have to be bold to admit that evil also, the apparent evil, is also from God. Instead of bringing in the idea of devil to cover up our cowardice, we don't want to admit that. So we bring a devil and say, oh, all the evil is done by the devil. We don't want to say that good and bad both come from God. Again, to quote Swami Vivekananda, she it is whose shadow is life and death. She is the pleasure in all pleasures. She is the misery in all misery. Then Swamiji says, I pity the man who does not face the whole. Be bold. Face facts as facts. Don't be chased about the universe by evil. Plunge in. See the divine power in good and evil alike. Then alone will come same-sightedness. The infinite shining bliss, that is Mother herself. When people worship Mother, there are three types of worship. As Sri Ramakrishna says, there is the tamasic aspect of worship, there is the rajasic aspect of worship of God, and sattvic aspect of worship of God. In many parts, we see Mother worship, divine Mother Kali worship in her tamasic aspect. People worship Mother Kali to get rid of some illnesses, or sometimes to take revenge upon the enemies. All that they say they are devotees of Mother Kali, but the purpose is this, all selfish purposes. And just as their purpose is selfish and tamasic, their mode of worship is also tamasic. They may be using wine, meat, and even animal sacrifice. The Rajasic devotees worship Mother with great pomp and elaborate rituals with big show. Whereas the Sattvic devotee, his worship is simple. There is no show. And for them, Kali is not terrible or fearsome, but a gentle, loving, indulgent mother. It is this aspect that is depicted by the right side of giving boons and protection. And it is this benign motherly aspect that the poet saints of Bengal like Ram Prasad and Kamalakanda and in our time Sri Ramakrishna worshipped. For them, Kali was mother, indulgent mother. She was not a terrible person. She was their mother and they were her children. The child does not shrink away from its mother, however powerful or strong or whoever the person be, mother be. For the child, she is the mother. And the child can press its demand on her. So Ram Prasad in one of his songs, he had written many, many beautiful songs for it on Divine Mother. In one of the songs he says, "Whom else should I cry to, mother? The baby cries for its mother alone. And I am not the son of such that I shall call any woman my mother." In another song, in a quarreling mood, he chides mother. Let remember, it's all mother to Kali, Mother Kali. It is not, and so he's telling her, it is not easy as that to be a mother. One does not become a mother by just giving birth to a child. To be a mother, one has to understand the anguish of the child's heart. Sri Ramakrishna loved all these songs because he says, looking upon God as mother is the highest in the spiritual path. And then he says, you can force your demands upon her. You can do anything. As child can force its demand on the mother, the devotee can, if you look upon God as mother, you can force your demand. There is no fear. And Sri Ramakrishna, he says, she is your own mother. With a yearning heart, persist in your demands on her. You must force your demand on the Divine Mother. She will come to you without fail. And he showed in his life how he forced the demands on her. Because after praying to her, meditating on her for a long, long time, he didn't have a vision of Mother Kali. And he was so desperate to have her vision that seeing the sword hanging in the wall of the temple on the shrine, he sprang up and took the sword to cut his throat, to put an end to his life. What's the point of living if I can't have the vision of mother? So that is forcing your demand on mother. If you can force like that, Sri Ramakrishna says, she will come to you without fail. And explaining this attitude of looking upon God as mother, he says, Brahman alone is addressed as mother. This is because a mother is an object of love. One is able to realize God just through love. But we cannot love Brahman. Brahman is an entity without name, form, or attributes. How can you love something, an abstract entity without name, form, or attributes? To love, we need a concrete form or at least some idea with attributes, a name, then we can love. For that, we have got Mother Kali. We ask her blessings and let us have pure love for her. Thank you.
Thanks, Pravrajika Gayatriprana Mataji, for the comprehensive description of Mother Kali. I think time is running out, so we'll have now some announcement by Robert, please. Yeah.
Firstly, thanks to all of you for attending today, and to all of you who are watching live on YouTube or who will be watching later. Thanks for joining us. This afternoon we have the monthly Vedanta Book Club meeting here in Vedanta Hall from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. And today we're going to be starting the study of Swami Vivekananda's lecture that he gave in America on real religion. That'll be the theme for the discussion led by Gayatriprana. And this coming Thursday, we have the weekly yoga class conducted by Hiroko from 10 a.m. And next Friday night, we have the fortnightly Bhagavad Gita discussion and class, and that's led by Gayatriprana. And you can join in person or via Zoom. And next Sunday, the topic for Gayatriprana's talk is Renounce and Enjoy. And we have donation plate there, donation box up the back. And we are now going to have the candlelight offering ceremony to Mother Kali that will be led by the nuns. Okay,